Welcome back to another episode on the Optimal Body Podcast. I'm Doc Jen.
I'm Dr. Dom.
And today we're talking about DDD, or Degenerative Disc Disease. Have you heard of this? Have you been diagnosed with it? Does it freak you out? Let's talk about it. Before we dive in on exactly what the research is saying on DDD, which I think is going to be a little bit surprising. So I'm excited about this. Don't forget to subscribe. We have so many podcast episodes, but not only that, I have videos on just quick exercises that you can do for certain pains or problems that have popped up in your body. And of course, if you have any suggestions on videos that you need help with, please drop it in the comments. I do it for you. So I need to know what's happening within your body so that we can help you.
And I'm actually really excited about the first few points that we're going to talk about, because so many times in the clinic, you'd have the person come in who says, oh my gosh, my doctor took an image of my back.
I got an MRI.
Got an MRI. They said I had the back of a 90-year-old.
Yeah.
They said they've never seen a back that looks this bad on MRI, which first of all, I don't understand the provider that sees an image and wants to put the fear of
everything,
disability, lifelong disability into a person by saying things like that. But the amount of times we would have people walk in or come into the clinic and say that their doctor told them something like that, how bad their image looked, whatever crazy words they use. It's kind of wild how many people have that put in their mind when their doctor reviews their image with them.
I mean, I've had a young person come to me and say, my doctor said that my back was so bad I should never lift weights because I don't want to add load onto my spine. And I'm like, well, then you better never get out of bed, because the minute you get out of bed, you're putting some stress just on standing and putting load on your spine. And we also know, fun fact, the height of a human body varies in 24 hours. So it can be assumed that on average, an individual's stature is shortened by about 1% during the period of daytime standing. And in elderly aged 70 to 80, the shortening is reduced by about 0.5 while standing and is 2% in young people. But that's it, we're going to put load on our body just by standing.
That's pretty crazy to think about, because 2% in young people. So say I'm 6 feet tall, 6'3", 75 inches. 1% of 75 inches is 3/4 of an inch. I don't know why I never thought of this or realized this, but if you're going to measure yourself consistently,
do it in the morning.
Do it right when you get out of bed. You might be 1/4 inch to 3/4 of an inch taller.
Right.
I feel like that's a big difference, especially when I was younger. 2% would be 1.5 inches.
I know, if you're trying to get on a ride and you've been out and about all day.
Yeah, hang upside down by your ankles for a minute and you might gain 1/4 of an inch. That's pretty crazy. But the main thing that we want to talk about is this point about, oh, my image looks so bad.
Yeah.
And associating that with back pain. And we're having more and more research articles because imaging has become so prevalent. You come in, you have back pain, get an image of your back. Is that actually good for us to be imaging everyone's back? Or is it just giving us more fuel to this fire going on in someone's mind of, oh, that's why I have pain. I have to fix that because that's why I have pain. These first 3 studies that we're going to talk about show that there is significant evidence that the back pain we feel doesn't specifically correlate at all with what our image looks like.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what's so cool. I love this first systematic review that we're looking at. It goes over 33 articles. So it's reporting imaging findings for 3,110 asymptomatic individuals.
No pain.
So no pain in these images of people. Now, disc degeneration prevalence ranged from 37% of asymptomatic individuals 20 years of age.
That's more than 1 in every 3 people who are 20 years of age already have disc degeneration.
To 96% of those 80 years of age.
96% of asymptomatic, no pain individuals have degenerative disc disease,
with a large increase in the prevalence through 50 years. We are going to age, and we see these aging processes happen on the outside of the body. And whatever, you get Botox, you want to fix it, you don't, but it's there, right? We know that we get aging on the outside of our body. And I think what we forget is that we age on the inside of the body as well. If our tissues are going to change externally, our tissues are going to change internally, and it doesn't have to correlate to the pain you are experiencing.
So essentially, more than 50% of asymptomatic people without pain between 30 and 39 years, have age-related disc degeneration, height loss, or bulging that suggests even in younger adults, degenerative changes may be incidental and not causally related to presenting symptoms or pain. Degenerative spine findings are incidentally seen and should be considered as normal age-related changes rather than pathologic processes.
It's huge. Everyone wants that quick understanding. Why is my back hurting, right? And I get it. Like especially if you've been in chronic pain, if this is something you've gone to multiple therapists, you've gone and you've tried all the treatments, you've done the things. And then there's some people who get the MRI and they're like, everything's fine. Everything looks normal. So
yeah,
should you have done that in the first place? Or you get the finding of like, oh, it's horrible, and now I'm only going to have more back pain and be afraid to move even more because I've seen
I'm broken, I'm brittle, I'm fragile.
Right.
Like, no, that's not the case. And hopefully this becomes more general practice. So if someone who's 60 and has severe back pain goes in and gets the image and they see degeneration, the doctor says, this is normal. Like, this is normal findings. I see patients with backs that look like this all the time that have very minimal symptoms. So let's get you on a plan to get you functioning strong and feeling more confident in your body again. What do we do? The people out there listening who are like, okay, well, if those horrible images the doctors were showing me have no bearing on how high my levels of pain are, then what do I do?
We want you to go back to what we're saying, that this doesn't necessarily correlate to your pain level or intensity or the reason that you have pain. It can be a part of your pain story. It's a part of your body story for sure. This is a part of you. But just like we're learning, everyone has different postures. Everyone has different ways that they walk. We cannot necessarily say you walk like this is why you have pain. You stand like this is why you have pain. Your image is like this is why you have pain. Now we have numerous studies that prove that one thing doesn't lead to another. There's so much more to the picture, and that's what we want to really dive into. And
that image is a part of your story. What if the story starts going down the path of, hey, I'm someone who has a pretty messed up looking spine on my image, but I feel strong, I feel capable, I feel relatively pain-free in my body, or I know what I need to do when my pain pops up.
It's possible to be in that section of group who doesn't have pain anymore. So how do I get there? And we know some of the biggest factors that play a role on disc changes or degeneration of the spine don't necessarily always have to do with movement, but environmental factors as well. So smoking has a huge impact on our tissue health.
In a huge part because of blood supply, and there's not a ton of blood supply that goes to our discs. And when we smoke, it constricts our blood supply peripherally, which limits the blood supply going to those discs, which is part of the thing that helps them stay hydrated for as long as possible. We start to see that dehydration when we start to get disc degeneration. But other points being our body weight or obesity, consistent flexed postures, or I think that it's funny because on this list it says low levels of physical activity or heavy physical labor or consistent high level and high impact activities. So
meaning
either end of the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going too hard or if you're not going at all, it could definitely impact how our spine degenerates.
This is what we come back to all the time, is how are we treating our body, not just biomechanically, not just movement wise, but also am I getting adequate quality of sleep? Like, this is so incredibly huge. We have to recharge our body in order for receptors and everything to be working together and working well. Like, how do we expect our body to work well if we're not getting adequate recovery? And that includes getting adequate hydration, making sure that we're eating our micronutrients and the nutrients that really fulfill our body, or are we only eating out and processed foods and not really nourishing our body? All of this really plays a role, and specifically stress. Like, if you're in a super stressed out state, your pain threshold is not going to be very high. It's going to be a lot lower because you don't have as much energy to really go up in that pain threshold. There's no more room because you're already taking on so much from everything else. You're going to feel things a lot more. So stress plays a huge impact on pain.
Yeah, these are all massive things that are going to play into our pain perception. If we are lacking in any of these areas, it can start to deplete that threshold or increase just our resting level of nervous stimulation, which impacts how we process pain. And then when it comes to back pain in general, going back to the question of like, what do we do? Focus on these things that Jen just mentioned, of course. How can we work on improving 1%, 2% in these different areas every day? And then as far as the movement side of things go, we came out with not too long ago, we have a low back episode, an upper back episode, and a neck episode. Hopefully we can tag them somewhere or also put them in the description, but on optimization of movement in these areas. And those could be great episodes to go listen to help understand, okay, what kind of mobility might I need to be looking at? What type of stability work should I be working at in certain areas? And then strengthening work, which all three of those episodes kind of go in that order. Where do I need to find mobility? Where do I need to gain a little bit more stability? And then how do I strengthen it all up to grow resilience in the body? Like that's really the process of how we're gonna start to biomechanically build a functional and resilient back.
But what we know for sure is that you can't say, oh, I have DDD, I shouldn't do deadlifts anymore, or this one exercise is going to help my DDD. We don't unfortunately have one perfect exercise protocol. We don't have one exercise protocol you shouldn't do. In general, it's very specific to you and what your body is needing and seeking. In general, we can say, okay, if you're having a bit more DDD, a bit more degeneration in the spine, you might not like extension of the spine quite as much right now. So we can work into slowly kind of regaining extension very slowly and appropriate for you, but also you might find a little bit more relief temporarily, or at least in the very beginning, to help you start more of your movement journey by gaining more connection to that inner core stability of how that core really works together with your hips and your trunk movement and stability through movement and rotation. So understanding better core coordination to help support your trunk and make you feel more confident in movement can be a really good place to start, I would say, for those who are having DDD, as well as, yes, you will want to look at the mobility of the body all around. But, I would say in general, and this is a very general thing, looking at that deep core coordination, which we have a core plan on Gen Health if you want to understand more, can be a really good, helpful place to start, just to start relieving some of those pains.
Core plan on Gen Health, there's a low back plan, there's an upper back and neck plan.
Yeah.
So regardless of where you might be feeling your symptoms, like Jen said, core plan is great and can generally be very helpful to people who have been having back issues. Also, those other low back, neck and upper back plan, as our podcast audience, if you want to go try it out, one, you get a free week trial if you haven't used your free trial yet, but you can also use code OPTIMAL to get an extra discount on your first month. And we would love for you to go try that out. And reach out to us. If you have any other questions that you don't feel like we answered in this podcast, please feel free to email us at jen@jen.health. We will try to get back to any questions, or if you have future topics you want us to cover, that's the place that you should let us know. Thanks for joining us for another episode from the Optimal Body Podcast. I absolutely love this kind of information because it's really freeing to people and helps free them from the shackles of their image. So we want you to empower yourself with this information going forward. Did you find anything interesting in the episode, or do you want to learn more? Drop topics below if you have anything you want us to do an episode on in the future. And of course, subscribe, hit that notification bell before you head out, and we'll see you next time.